Coming around to the final sweeper before coming onto the main straight, about 70 kilometres an hour. Head down, maximum revs about 19,000 RPM. The engine will be touching 120 k's an hour right now, braking hard into this left-hander, right out wide over that extra bit of track that they've added, braking into this hairpin, then accelerate hard, every bit of the track onto the ripple strip, almost flat out through this chicane if your cart's set up correctly, braking hard into this hairpin, pulling around 3 G-forces. Right out wide, try and stay on the rubber line, try not to get off the marbles, accelerate right out wide to the ripple strip, up this short straight and position yourself in for this sweeper, flat out around onto the main straight, and there we go. That's a lap of Bolivar Raceway in a WINS Intercontinental A kart.
Welcome back to Bolivar Raceway in South Australia, and a record 36 drivers took to the track in the Intercontinental A class, and favourite going into the event had to be recently crowned Oceania champion Alan Gurr. Sometimes, however, Mother Nature has a way of evening things out. Gurr bedridden for the entire week leading up to the Bolivar event with a viral infection. Over the 3 heats, Andrew Tomlinson took 1 win, and 2 wins went to junior champion Neil McFadden. This is McFadden's first outing in the senior ranks in the WINS Championship, and he was keen to show the same dominance he enjoyed in the junior ranks in 1998. McFadden grabbed an early lead in the pre-final, but couldn't keep Tomlinson at bay, forcing his way past in the early laps and going on to take a dominant win, 5 seconds clear of McFadden at the flag.
Yeah, I just bogged down a little bit at the start, lost 3 or 4 positions. Then I just picked them one by one. Jason Burns was very fair. He had good top end, but he let me through. And then I just decided to catch McFadden. I didn't want to go too hard because the tyres are fairly marginal. But I caught him and I was able to get through on the last lap, so that was a good result.
Okay, and let's now check out the starting grid for you in the final of Intercontinental A in the WINS Australian Karting Championships. You're watching the action, by the way, courtesy of Kartos magazine. And Tomlinson is our pole man. Outside him is Neil McFadden, then Burns. And a very good field here in the top 10 drivers to look out for, including Alan Gurr, who starts back in position number 6. This racetrack about 770 odd metres at Bolivar in South Australia. Top speed at the end of the main straight, some 115 kilometres an hour. And young Neil McFadden, 16 years of age, got an outstanding start and has taken the lead as they settle down and work their way through the first couple of corners. I'm joined once again in commentary by Ian Salvestrin, who was scheduled to start this final but encountered some mechanical problems, Ian.
Yeah, thanks, David. We'll look at Neil McFadden, who's assumed the start of this race, and in second place it's Chris Walton from Queensland. He's made a fantastic start to be ahead of Jason Burns, who's dropped back into 3rd place.
Gee, there's some pace on here. In the early stages of the Intercontinental A final, 38 entries this weekend, which is something of a record in this class. About half a dozen karts failed to qualify. And McFadden, very keen to go on with the job. He was so dominant last year, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's moved up to the senior ranks this year, and he's doing it all again. I mean, he's out front now, and he'll be very difficult to beat. Chris Walton's doing an excellent job in 2nd place. Burns, who's in 3rd place, he's using the Italian Vega tyre. Gurr, who's the Oceania champion, is back behind him in kart number 19. Most of the drivers on Dunlop tyres in this class this weekend. There's a handful of drivers on the Vega tyres, and Burns is one of them.
Yes, interesting, isn't it, that we saw the majority on Bridgestones in the juniors. This time it's Dunlop, the popular choice by drivers, and here is chaos. There's karts and drivers and debris everywhere.
It looks like David Cocciolone, the right-hand side of your screen's one of them. Dwayne Dolling, and looks like Jason Heronick also has been involved in that.
A nasty one. They appear, though, the drivers, to have emerged unscathed. But scrap. Up on the inside is Tomlinson in kart number 2. Young McFadden out in front. One of the drivers on the right-hand side of your screen, they're limping quite badly, so perhaps they haven't all emerged unscathed.
Well, that's David Cocciolone from Perth as Gurr moves up a spot. Burns is shoved out wide. Andrew Tomlinson, our pole sitter, has gone through as well. And they make their way up through the Port Wakefield hairpin. Gurr looks to the front. Does he wave Tomlinson through? No, he doesn't. Walton sits in front of those two as they all set about chasing McFadden.
Yeah, ideal start by the youngster. McFadden would lead, I guess, by some 7 or 8 metres at the moment. Sponsored by Skilled, your flexible workforce.
Gurr, who's actually recovered from... Well, he's been in bed all week. He's been very ill with a viral infection. He's actually been sick all weekend. It's a courageous effort for him to even drive this weekend. And Tomlinson in front of him, on the other hand, he's making his debut in this class and doing a fantastic job.
It's been courageous, particularly when you understand the physical demands of this sport. It is not easy, a lot tougher than it looks.
Is that Walton waving Tomlinson through on the inside? Looks as though he was. That's good sportsmanship from Walton. He knew he wasn't quick enough to hold him out. And Tomlinson, the man on the charge, he's the new Tony Kart driver in kart number 2 for 1999, and he's doing an exceptional job.
Now Gurr up running 4th. He started from position number 6 on the grid in this final. So he's doing a very good job at the moment to keep in touch with them. McFadden, a blind to start, and at the moment he's cruising around out in front on his own. We look further back in the pack now at the action, and up front of this pack is in fact Walton in 66. Next man through is Alan Gurr in number 19, followed on the circuit by Mark Hester, the driver of kart 29, who has a look up the inside now.
Mark actually also making his debut in the class this weekend. A lot of drivers new to the ranks, and they're finding out how hard Intercontinental A is, both in terms of driving skill and physically. It's very, very difficult. Jason Burns, we know, it's not dropped back a few spots. He's just ahead of Blake Curtis and Barclay Holden there. As we look at kart number 5, we've got to tell you about Matt Wallace. There's an accident coming onto the start-finish straight there. They all seem to get through. Matthew Wall in kart number 5 had a massive accident in practice on Friday. That's him on screen there, going on the inside of Hester. Actually dislocated his shoulder. He spent all of Friday in hospital. They've rebuilt the spare chassis, and there he is, riding in about 5th or 6th spot. This is a fantastic drive from Matthew Wall.
In the Eagle Lighting CRG entry.
Look at Jamie Carter also on the move, has gone through on the inside of James Small, former junior champion. Jamie Carter in the gold kart's actually doing exceptionally well, and he's right on the pace this weekend. Signals to Small, says, don't fight with me. He says, let's chase the guys in front, otherwise we're going to get caught up in our own little battle, and we're going to fall back from the head of the pack.
Once again, great racing being provided by the nation's best karters. If you may have just joined us, this is the opening round of the Wins series to be conducted over 4 rounds. And you'll see every round right here, and you'll see some fabulous racing, as has been demonstrated here.
Jamie Carter, who's gone through on kart number 29, Mark Hester, 2 Adelaide drivers there. They've got Matthew Wall ahead of him. Carter with his head down and trying to make some sort of impression, as Matthew Wall just ahead of him fights with Chris Walton.
Carter in the JK Tuning gold kart was fairly consistent last year, so he started 99 the same way he finished 98.
Yep, actually finished 2nd in the junior title in 1998. Stepped up to seniors. He's already had a win in the senior ranks, not in the Intercontinental A class, in some other classes of racing, and doing great in his 2nd time out in the Intercontinental A class. Right up behind Matthew Wall now, into the slipstream, 100, 110, 115 k's an hour. Wall goes the inside of Walton, and he's made the pass.
Ian, you would know as well as anybody, because you do campaign in Intercontinental A entry. What sort of budget does one need to go racing in this 4-round national championship, and I guess encompassing all of the other blue ribbon events around the country?
Really, once you've got the equipment, it is reasonably expensive. It can be, you really need $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 per round just in running costs. I mean, this is the Formula 1 of karting. We're not saying karting as a whole is that expensive, but this is the elite level, and you do need sort of $3,000, $4,000 or $5,000 per round.
And the cost of setting up and purchasing the kart and setting the team up in the first place?
You need 1 or 2 chassis at $3,000 or $4,000 each. Engines, you need 3 of those at $2,000 or $3,000 each, and you go through about $800 worth of tyres per meeting. So it's not cheap, but again, as we did emphasise, this is the elite level of karting in Australia.
And as we've emphasised before, in comparison to so many other forms of motorsport, it is cheap.
Well, exactly. I mean, in compared to car racing, it is very, very cheap, even though it may be expensive as a sport or a hobby.
Matt Wall in kart number 5 leads this raging pack. They are really working hard around the Bolivar venue in South Australia. You're watching Wall and Jamie Carter right behind him. Up on the inside, Wall gets out of shape. Carter, well, he served him up there, didn't he, Carter? I would suspect that Wall won't be overly happy about that.
James Small, the Wins driver, is out of the race. That's kart number 3 in the Arrow AX6. Looks as though he's been caught in that accident too, involving Carter and Wall. Wall's actually managed to keep going. Looked as though he almost stalled it. Coming up behind Barclay Holden, and Holden holds him out this time round. Jason Burns, the Wollongong driver in the definitive entry kart, sits right back behind them.
There's never been a more appropriate name, has there? in order to go motor racing than Barclay Holden. Sounds like a car dealership somewhere.
Exactly.
Here's McFadden up front, our leader. The kid's a freak. This young bloke can drive. Mark him down as one of the future. I mean, in karting, he's arrived already. He could go anywhere.
Super professional young driver is McFadden from Sydney, just 16 years of age, as we mentioned. He won everything there was to win in juniors, and now in only his second senior Intercontinental A race, he's out front.
Such a humble young man too, not moderately affected by his success. Just goes about his business quietly and professionally. There's the top three for you on screen as we approach the final stages of the Intercontinental A final. The Wins Australian Karting Championship, brought to you by Kartos Magazine.
Look back to Blake Curtis in kart number 14 as Matthew Wall goes through on the inside of Holden. Burns and Curtis, as we were just speaking about, sit in behind him. Blake Curtis making his debut in the class in the pro vinyl entry as he's chasing down Burns, Holden and Matthew Wall. Look at Matthew Wall's physical posture. He's in real pain. He's dislocated his shoulder. He's living on painkillers all weekend. You can just see him starting to lean through these fast 3 and 4G corners. He's doing a sensational job to hold out that position.
Up the inside of Barclay Holden goes Blake Curtis in number 14. That is a Birrell entry. I've talked before about the widespread representation of the various chassis manufacturers. That's great too.
As Burns in the Techno goes through on the inside of Barclay Holden, fighting for 6th and 7th spot. And kart number 33, that's Jonathan Reed, another one of our Kiwi visitors all the way from New Zealand, doing a great job there in the Techno.
Tomlinson is running behind our leader McFadden, and we're inside the last racing lap now. Well, this is a perfect way for McFadden to start in the senior category after being the dominant force in juniors. He's got about half a lap to run in kart 59, sponsored by Skilled, your flexible workforce, and a number of other backers, a number of other believers in the talents of this young man as he races through the left-hander across the line. And checkered flag time for McFadden. Terrific performance, locks up, such as his jubilation at the end of the main straight. Let's check the result now in the Intercontinental A final. It was McFadden, Tomlinson, Gurr, Carter, Wall rounding out the top 5 in the CRG entry. And then Skinner, Macro, Reed, Walton and Brown. And McFadden is delighted about that.
Junior Intercontinental A last year, 4 rounds from 4 starts. Do you think you'll do it again?
Oh, I can only try, but there's a lot of people that won't want me to do that, I think, especially the bloke standing over there who comes 2nd and 3rd. They'll be trying their best to stop me, but I'll see what I can do.
Another good start. That's obviously the key to it. Get away from the trouble early on in the piece. There was a few accidents in midfield that you've obviously missed, which is good, but you find it fairly easy or fairly stressful?
Oh, it's pretty stressful out there in front, and you see people catching you and you start thinking all these things, that cart's going to blow up, or it's just very frightening. But yeah, at the start I like to get away first and try and just clear out.